Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
And we're back. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Deceive Reality Podcast. Unfortunately, Steve Spade isn't here this week. He has a gig. Like, what's that about? You know, priorities, that right? But we're here with a very special guest, Nique Tan. Nick, how are you doing?
Hi, David. Hello. Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here. I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. I know it's been a bit different with the time differences, so thanks for taking the time on this Saturday to chat to us. We really appreciate it.
No, it's pleasure. What time is it there for you actually?
It is just coming up to noon.
That's at noon. Okay, it's all right for me. It's late, early evening, so it's no problem at all. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't ruin anything that's happened in the future now, because I don't know what happens today yet. So you've already lived Saturday, so you know everything already. So it's
okay.
It's how the mentalism works, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
So we usually ask people at the beginning, kind of like, tell their story about how they got into this weird world of magic and mentalism. How did your love for this really begin?
All right. Well, I'm sure most mentalists and magicians would have, they have a very long story. Mine it's long, but it's very simple actually, because I mean, as a kid, sometime in the mid 1980s, I think, I don't know, 84, 86 maybe, David Copperfield walked through the Great Wall of China. Right.
Yeah.
So I was a little kid at the time, and I was watching this on TV, and I was just amazed by the whole thing, right? And I remember telling my dad, that I really want to learn how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So that started the ball rolling, and I mean, my dad would buy me like the odd magic set here and there. And then I also had, some magic books. But I think what really changed was when my dad had a friend who showed him, for some reason, all right, out of the blue, just showed him a coin matrix.
Such a trick.
A coin matrix, right? And, my dad was in his office, and his friend showed this to him, and he was like, I wish my son was here. He loved this kind of stuff. So he came home, told me about it. I got excited about it. So, we arranged a meeting. We went to meet this guy. And from there, he was a member of the local IBM. And he introduced me to a magic shop. And from there, we really started to spend the money. Yeah. And so the spending never stops until today, right? So from there, I met my first kind of magic teacher. So he taught me, a whole bunch of tricks. And it just kind of developed from there until today, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. It's similar enough to mine, because my dad met someone who did magic, and it's like semi-professionally, and then he's like, "Oh, my son loves magic. Show him." And then he was like, "Oh, there's a club for magicians." And I was like, "There's clubs for magicians?"
Right. I know, right? I was just so. I mean, as a little like primary school kid, going into like a whole room of magicians. I remember my first IBM meeting. I don't know. It was a mixture of fear and excitement, and it's like you suddenly you feel like suddenly there's this underground world that you are open to, right? It's like, oh my goodness, these are all magicians, and so it was a really great experience, like getting into magic for me personally. Yeah,
definitely, because I think it's that cool thing as well of like taking it from those magic sets of like, maybe you might have a color vision that's like your go-to trick and you think it's the most amazing, and then you start seeing these actual things that you're seeing on TV can actually be done properly, and it's like, I think that next step is amazing.
Yeah. And I think the strange thing is, as a kid, right, and when the magic set comes to you, you open it up, and the first things you go for are the brightest and colorful stuff, right? Because you're a kid, and anything that looks like a box or anything like that, it gets your interest immediately. And then suddenly, you ignore some of the other little side tricks, right?
Yeah.
And then it's only like along the way when someone else performs it for you, and then you're like, oh wait, I have this.
Yeah.
And then you go back, and then you're, oh, this is so good. So some tricks are like that, right? You need to have someone actually perform it for you in order to kind of appreciate how it looks in performance, right? Because as a kid, you don't have that kind of ability to kind of imagine how it plays. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you always see that thing and it looks amazing on the box, and then it's like you get this pamphlet where it's like one paragraph, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't understand anything of what's going
Yeah,
on
yeah,
here.
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And then you kind of do a lot like a mentalism on stage, mainly. Where did that love of mentalism come from then?
Well, mentalism. Excuse my throat. I'm still like in the middle of COVID-19. All right, so yeah, I'm better now actually. But okay, so the mentalism for me, I mean, in the late 90s, I was absolutely obsessed with Gary Kurtz. All right, so I mean, those of you out there who don't know Gary Kurtz, you have to just at least have a look at his material. All right, he's one of the greatest to me. So I was in love with Gary Kurtz's material, and then for some reason, suddenly, I found out that he actually stopped doing magic and he went into mentalism, right? And he performed a stage mentalism show, I think in Quebec or Montreal or wherever he is. So that kind of intrigued me. I was wondering why at that point in time. And I managed to email him at one time, right? So as a fanboy, that was a big thing for me, right? I was like emailing like one of my heroes. And on the email, we were discussing certain things, and we were talking about how now, even though he's like so skillful, technically skillful with his hands, he does not show any skill on during his performance at this point in time, and it was a different kind of a thing, and that kind of intrigued me. Like why would you have a skill and not kind of show it, right? Because at this point in time, I was a really young kind of a performer, and as a young kid, it's all about look at me, how great I am, right?
100%.
Right. So yeah, that kind of baffled me. Along the way, Darren Brown came onto the scene. All right. So that was the early 2000s, and as a kid, I thought I knew everything, and then when I watched Darren Brown, he kind of put me in my place. He kind of like sat me down and said, you know what, you have no idea what you're doing. And then I watched Mind Control, and I was just so fascinated by it, right? Everything just fooled me completely, and I had like almost no mentalism knowledge at that point. So I was like as good as a layman, basically. And I just watched it, and I was so amazed by it. And from there, I immediately just started reading up and started learning about it, everything I can, right? I mean, Banachek, Osterlin, Eneman, Corinda, anything I could get my hands on mentalism, I just started, just reading, and from there, I just slowly kind of transitioned from being a magic kind of a magician, right? Close-up magician, house party magician, and I started just doing mentalism like kind of full time. It was not an easy process, but that's long story short again, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely that Darren Brown thing, because like as magicians you can watch like a David Blaine stuff and you're like, oh, you might recognize a coin bite gimmick, or you might recognize some piece of sleight of hand, and then you would watch Darren, you're like, no, like that's not fucking possible.
Exactly, right? It's like it's so impossible. And I mean, even with mentalism knowledge, watching him, you kind of still have you can't really connect the dots, right? Because as a mentalist, you understand what needs to be done, so the dots, you just can't connect them. At that point in time, I had no mentalism knowledge, so I didn't even see the dots. So I had nothing. I really just thought that he could just look at your eyes and tell you things. I really believe in the whole premise, so that was the reason why it was just so amazing to me. And yeah, I mean, Darren Brown really changed my direction in things, I think. Yeah,
because I do similarly. Like on stage, I'm a mentalist, 100% pure mentalist, and then close up, I tend to mix it up. I do bits of sleight of hand and bits of mentalism, because as you probably know yourself, it's when a lot of close up stuff, you're in loud environments, like the lighting is awful.
I totally understand.
Yeah, so it's have you found that sort of thing where you like when you're performing up close, you might pull out a bit of visual magic just to try like so people can see you or something like that?
Actually, yes. I mean, it's I think it's okay to admit it here. I think amongst magicians and performers here in Singapore, You know, I'm known as like, oh, the mentalist guy, right? So and newer magicians and newer people in the event industry won't know me as like magician, you know. So I do actually in the past when I still used to do like, you know, mingling engagements and stuff. I would usually just perform like a bunch of magic tricks, you know, and out came all the Gary Kurtz material, all the stuff that I love, you know, the coin work, the cards and stuff. And then if the group was a good group, right, then I would do a billet routine or some mentalism stuff just to close that particular group, I think. So at times while I was kind of sold as a mingling mentalist or a roving mind reader, right? I think it's important to work effectively. You know, at least you still want to have, you know, at least at the end of the day, if people go to your clients, they at least still have to say that guy was amazing. We saw him do some amazing stuff. You know, we don't, you know, you don't want to just force all this mentalism stuff, this heavy mentalism stuff. And if it doesn't hit, then you're not seen to be doing your job well. And, you know,
it's definitely a worry as well, because like when you're doing close-up, it's much harder to control everything, while on stage it's a lot easier to control. So like if someone's writing is messy, you can get around it. But close-up, if you can't read what the person's writing, it's so awkward, and you're just like, oh, I need a way out of this.
Yeah, I know. It's I think close-up, it's really harder to, ironically, to predict, right? what happens, you know, performing. And I mean, I think there's also there's a different dynamic between you and spectator. I think that line isn't so clear, you know, in a close-up environment, and so they have more liberties with, you know, they tend to challenge you a bit more. They want to grab your cards a bit more. They want to, you know, no, you tell me first. What is it? You know, that kind of a thing. Whereas in a stage environment, which I much prefer now, it's like it's clear that you are a performer and, you know, you have, you know, control over things and stuff. So I think I kind of like to prefer, you know, I prefer to perform in that kind of a setting a bit more, I think. So that's the reason why actually I've stopped doing like, you know, close-up gigs.
Because I'm in that transition at the moment to get more stage stuff, because it is the close-up. I had a swim pad to someone at a gig, and on stage, swim pad, no problem, works fine. They were riffling through it. They're like, oh my god, they're all the same. And you're like, what are you talking about? Then riffle it the other way. It's not, ta-da! It's like a coloring book or something. Like, ta-da, move on to the next thing. Thanks so much, bye.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it? Close-up. Sometimes it's just, oh goodness. You know, you can be so clear about instructions, you know, and people just either intentionally or not, you know, they just, you know, want to get you, right? Because you're the magician, I'm going to get you. So
it's definitely a tough thing. But then with the stage stuff, you do like a lot of the mentalism and stuff like that. Do you find with the stage performance to try and get like that flow right when you're performing on stage, of like, because basically mentalism can really boil down to you're reading someone's mind or you're predicting what they're going to do. It's really like, is it two tricks really we have? Do you struggle with that, trying to like flow the like a full show together to keep the variety going?
I mean, it was not an easy, like, kind of a transition doing this mentalism stuff, because on stage in the past, you know, when I was doing like a dinner event, you know, I had like an opening act, right? I had you're never going to see videos of this publicly, all right? Because I'll never post them. But, you know, I had like appearing canes and doves and silks and stuff, you know? And suddenly, when you don't have any of that, and you don't have that to kind of fall back on and rely on to introduce you, it can be quite, you know, scary, right? Because you're suddenly on stage and you've got nothing. So in terms of the show structure, well, in Singapore, the standard show structure, all right, regardless of what you perform, it can be a music act, you're a magician, a mentalist, a ventriloquist, you know, the shows in Singapore are a standard length, usually, of 30 minutes. All right.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of structure a 30-minute show, and in that 30 minutes, you have to just kind of cram as much as you can in, or not. All right, or not. So
Yeah.
the way I do my show is to create variety. The effects might not be different. It might
Yeah.
still be mind reading, but I think it was Paul Daniels. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. But there is a kind of shape change on stage. All right.
Yeah.
So my opening routine is just me on stage. So that is one image. It's just one. The second routine, I have two people up on stage, one on my left and one on my right. So that's like a different image. In one routine, maybe I'm on stage, but I have three people stood up in the audience. Right.
Yeah.
In my next routine, I'm just in front, blindfolded, and someone's behind me. So that is another different shape. So the shape on stage kind of changes, and I think that gives it at least some visual variety, at least. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's basically how I tend to structure the show. Also in terms of like speed, because some routines are a little bit slower.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't like have a slow piece followed by another slow piece, and I tend to do a couple of fast one, a slow one maybe, and then fast, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's really interesting. I like that image thing on stage of like creating shapes and that side of things, because I think it's really important, because it can just end up being like, I always stand on the right side of stage, spectators always on the left, and they're just rotating as I read their mind.
And I mean, you can imagine, if you were to be always comfortable. I don't know. I mean, are you like that? You are more like comfortable having a spectator. If you're just walking with one spectator on stage,
yeah,
you tend to put them on either your left or right. Are you like that?
Yeah, I always tend to put them on my left. They're always on my left.
If I had just one spectator, I tend to put them on my right.
Yeah.
So there's a danger in doing that kind of a routine, because, or rather, in having that kind of a staging alone, especially if you've got like 2 or 3 routines with just one spectator. So maybe you just have a book test with one spectator. You bring him on stage, you put them on your right.
Yeah.
And then you're like doing this book test, and you think, oh, it's great because it's using a book, right? So it's different. And then you bring up another spectator on stage, and you put them on your right again. And now maybe you do, I don't know, a metal bending routine, and you think, oh, this is great. It's visual variety, now it's a 4. But, people watching from a distance, they just see you there, and then there's another person there. You are there, and another person there. So it can look visually not as interesting, I think. So by varying where people stand, even if you just put a chair on stage, have them sit down, you are stood behind them with your hands on their shoulders, things like that. Just visual differences in staging. I think that really helps a mentalism act. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite things I love doing on enjoying my show is just taking a chair, putting it center stage, and near the end, I usually do it just before my Q&A, and just sitting on the chair for a bit in silence and just looking at the audience, because there's something about some kids, they're just like, why is he sitting down? This is weird. It doesn't look right.
Right.
I think changing of levels, I think, is something that's important. Like getting the spectator to sit down as well can really like change it up. But it is visual, which is really interesting for like such a non-visual type of magic, which is mentalism.
Yeah. I mean, since we are doing a very non-visual kind of a performance, I think we do need to have at least other considerations in trying to compensate, I think, for that lack of visual magic. So yeah, I think it's something that and I don't think we think about these things like really early on. If you're a beginning in this whole thing, you tend to just focus on, what's the best center tear, or what's the best wallet to use, or which technique, right? That kind of a thing. You're very focused on your experience of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Like going onto the stage, what markers should I use? What envelopes should I use? It's all very focused on your experience, right? But I think as you go further and you develop, you should try to focus on what the audience experiences, and look and just put yourself in their position and see what they would enjoy, as opposed to, just focusing on yourself. Yeah. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's such good advice for people to just be like, it's about what the audience wants. Because I see so many people like commenting on things. Because I started doing reviews as well recently, and people like, oh, I don't like the method, so I'm not going to do it. And you're just like, but does the audience like the effect? That's the most important thing. I don't care about the method. I care about what people enjoy when I perform it.
Yeah.
So when did you start doing the reviews on YouTube as well? Was that just something to pass the time during this time?
Yes. Well, actually, I think the very first time I did like a review kind of a thing, right? This video thing was well, in Singapore, I have I have a group of friends who run an online magic store. Right, it's called the Fundamentals. All right, they have a Facebook page. So I was you know, I was a member on the page, and I did a review. The very first video I did was in like November, I think, of 2019, maybe, just like a one-off kind of a thing for something by Mark Spellman, called The Gallery. I think he's got a deck of photo cards, The Gallery. So I literally just thought, you know, nothing much to do. Let's grab a phone and let's see if I can just, you know, talk about this, because I enjoy talking about stuff, right? Yeah. So I did it. I shared it with the group. Response seemed to be pretty all right, you know, and I thought, yeah, that was fun, but I didn't pursue it at that point. I didn't like, you know, I just thought I'd just share some information with the local magic community. And then COVID came, right? So, I mean, all my engagements, you know, because the last stage show I did was, the last time I stepped off stage was at the end of January in 2020. All right?
Yeah.
And I keep going back to this story because, you know, I'm not thinking to myself, if at that point in time when I was stepping off stage, if suddenly, you know, you were to come up to me and say, you know what, this will be the last time you're stepping off stage for the next 2.5 years, I would never believe you, right? No way I would believe you. It's like, no way. But well, it happened. So from then, in, you know, February, March, things started getting bad around here, and all of my gigs started getting cancelled, and it was just crazy.
Yeah.
And in Singapore, we had a 2-month lockdown period. All right. So in April and May of 2020, we had a lockdown period, so we couldn't go out. Right. So for 2 months, and so I thought, just to kind of talk about magic again, I would just try to do another episode of this, and so I did the first official kind of episode for Nique Tan Charts, the show, for a product by Danny Weiser called Manifest. All right, it's a luggage tag confabulation, kind of a prediction effect. So I did it. I uploaded it on Facebook. I don't know. I had like just a handful of subscribers at that point, you know, mainly friends. And I uploaded it, and response was not bad. You know, I think I had some comments, and people said, you know, they're like, hey, I'm so wondering, why aren't you doing more episodes of this? You know, I really enjoyed it. And I was thinking, well, yeah, okay. So I had the time, and I just tried to do another one and another one and another one. And then, yeah, it just kind of became like a bit of a habit, I suppose. And yeah, that's how it started, I think.
It is cool to have that sort of like, we all lost that magic like feeling of like performing, because even for me, like my last gig was Valentine's Day 2020. So I was doing a performance at Valentine's Day. And then nothing after that. And if you told me that like no performance for 2 years, I'd be like, how bad did I do at that gig? Did I do something that they're like, no, don't hire him, he's useless. But yeah, it was good. That's how the podcast started as well. Me and my co-host Steve we just jump on Facebook video chat, and we'd just be sitting there, and it got so bad we used to shuffle decks of cards and go through the entire deck to see how many cards would match. That's how bored we got during lockdown, because we couldn't leave our house. Surprisingly, we get like 10 to 15 cards matching in a shuffle deck, which is like, that's a craziness. Or we'd hold up cards and get each other to guess what cards they were, just pass the time.
Goodness, okay.
Yeah, it got bad. Lockdowns got bad. But yeah, I think the reviews are interesting as well, because I actually think, since I've only started doing a couple of weeks now, and it's like you start looking at products slightly differently, because it's not only about your opinion. You're trying to think of what other people might be thinking about them and that sort of stuff. Have you started like looking at products differently now when you're buying them from like doing reviews?
Well, I've always bought magic and mentalism pretty much in the same way, I think. I mean, they haven't changed since I started doing these like reviews. So currently at this point in time, I don't like buy stuff and think to myself, this would make a good video.
Yeah.
Right. I don't do that. I kind of I buy material that I think I can either use or I find it interesting, or I think I can kind of learn something from it. Even though I know I'm never going to use it, but there may be just one element of it that I quite like, and I find it that, I want to learn that part.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would buy, magic or mentalism, right? So I would just buy it like that. And if I feel like inspired enough, to talk about it, then yeah, I will just, start to formulate an episode of the show in my head. Other times, some people, they will send me stuff, right? They will request for reviews. There are some products I totally can't do, right? Because I've got no experience using them, and I probably can't, give people any kind of constructive opinion about it, right?
Yeah.
But if it's mentalism based, if my interest is there already, chances are I can kind of talk a little bit about it, I think. So yeah, I mean, no, it hasn't changed much. I think I just buy based on like what I like. Yeah.
So I found the Orphic review that you did really helpful, because it's like a mentalism point of view on a wallet that's like split between mentalists and magicians, because most review shows are by magicians who are like, oh, get the Orphic Plus because of the character wallet. It's like, I don't do character wallets, so which one do I go for? So then having a mentalist be able to actually break down the Orphic's good for mentalism is just very handy to get that sort of things. And other mentalism-y products would sometimes get mixed, which is, I think, is really helpful for mentalists around the place.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, D Christopher over at 1914 has been really kind, has been really kind to me, and yeah, it's really with the support from people like that, right, that I can get to continue to kind of produce such content, because doing reviews can be expensive, especially if if you're the kind of a reviewer that you're there for the views, right? You're there for the subscriptions, you want the views, so you tend to look for what's the latest and greatest thing, what should I review next, that kind of a thing. If that is your drive, then you're going to spend quite a bit of money, I think, because you've got to buy a lot of stuff, and after you buy the stuff, you do the episode, and then it goes into the drawer, right? You don't use it, so it's going to be pretty expensive. So I'm thankful, that D has been quite supportive and really kind, to just share some stuff with me, so that I can at least chat about them, on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, because it can be very expensive. My wife does SEO, and she did some searches around YouTube to see like what magic review what are people searching, and it was all like Venom or like the Raven, and I was like, that's 200 quid. Oh, that other thing that people, that's 200 quid, and they won't be getting reviewed, because it's like, I didn't buy these things for a reason. And obviously people are looking for reviews of expensive things, because you're going to be more careful with your purchase if it's 200 quid versus 20. You're gonna want to make sure it's right. So
I mean, I totally understand. I totally understand, but I do hope that people understand as well, because sometimes I get messages or like emails, and it's just like one line, review this. I need the money. I can't just you can't just say review this and expect me to just be able to churn it out, right? So yeah, man, I do hope people understand as well, right? Like most of the time I do buy these things for myself. So yeah, I mean, feasibly, right? It's not possible to just grab and buy everything just to do the review. Yeah.
Review the entire Pro Mystic range. That should be It'd be fine.
Whoa.
That'll hurt.
that will hurt. Yeah, it's I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things, but I think it's a cool to have more reviews coming out, because it is good for getting different people's perspective on things, of like being able to watch one of your reviews and then going over like Craig Petty's channel or Magic Orthodoxy and just getting different people's opinions. 'Cause for a while it was just really Worlds, or there was a product review, or there was a Magic review that was like the only review show, and it's cool just to get as many people's opinions on tricks out there as possible.
Yeah, I think it's great to have even though I'm doing these reviews as well, I really I just love watching other people talk about products as well, and especially products that I'm interested in. So even if I have talked about for example, the Orphic, even if I've done that review, I would still love to just go around and look at other people's videos and see what they talk about, because there are things that you can learn from them as well. And they may bring up points that it didn't occur to you. So I think the reviewing community is kind of slowly growing, right? And with more voices, I think for consumers it's good as well, because you get more opinions, and you can get more accurate kind of purchasing decisions, hopefully.
Because it's like with movie reviews. I watch a lot of online YouTube movie reviews, and there's people that I gravitate towards because 9 times out of 10 the movies they like, I like. So you need that then with the Magic, where it's like, oh, I've watched this person's channel and they love all these tricks, but I don't. But then this person, everything they've recommended, I've really liked. So that's where the variety really, I think, comes into it.
Yeah. I think it's not. I never really came into this thing, hoping that, oh, I'm going to be like the next huge YouTube person, right? I really just wanted to do the kind of reviews that I would enjoy watching. I try to make them as entertaining as possible, and as tight as possible as well. So I try not to fill it with too much stuff that it's extra words and stuff. I try to cut all that out. So it's all about just doing these videos that I would enjoy watching, and the way I would like to do it. It's more about that, I think. Yeah, for me at least.
Has there been any product that you've reviewed that's like really surprised you, that like you weren't thinking it was going to be as good as it was, or something you thought was going to be amazing that just didn't really happen?
Let's see. Any product that I was surprised by? Not really, I think. Well, there was one that I thought would have gotten more attention. And that was the what was it called? Mosaic. It's a Rubik's Cube routine, and I liked the effect a lot. I mean, if you know the effect, it's basically the prediction of one side of the cube, and there was a certain clarity about the routine, because it's basically really briefly, right? You're holding a cube like that, the face to the audience, and you mix it. People see the face keep changing. So as you mix it, they tell you to mix it, let's say 6 times. So you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You bring it through a cycle of moves. They see the face keep changing, and you stop at the exact number they name, and that face you show that you have predicted. Right. So I really like that plot, that the effect, right? And for some reason I don't think that product took off, but I thought it was quite a charming piece. So that might be one, I think.
Because I think a lot of people get caught up with it's like, oh, it's a prediction, but they name the number, you're doing the mixing, but it's like, just try it for people, and like you'll get the reaction,
I have used that effect actually in a couple of my virtual shows. So because in my virtual show I've got like 3 cube routines that I can kind of use. One of them uses just 1 cube, one of them uses 2 cubes, and one uses 3 cubes. So that forms the 1 cube routine I do. So if I don't want to do like very heavy cube stuff, I just do that routine. So it plays all right, it's not going to be a closer, but it's a nice second kind of a routine, you know, that kind of a spot in the show, I think. Yeah.
It can work well as well in like if you're in a situation where someone's seen you perform and you've done like a proper Venom cube matching everything all sides, and you're now on Zoom where they can't mix the cube. It's great, like, oh, you just name a number and I'll mix it a little bit and it matches. Or as like a teaser, if you're doing like a Skype or Zoom before trying to get booked for a gig, it's nice and quick, and you match it, and then you show up on the day and do something with like loads of cubes or something like that. I can see there's definitely uses for it out there. It's quite a strong effect.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a thought just came to me as well. Like, nothing really like surprised me because, in terms of, I thought this would be really not really good, but you know, then it became really good, or the converse, right? I didn't think it would be. I thought it would be good, but it turned out really bad. I think I tend to be quite selective of the material I review on the show as well. So I tend to review only things that I like.
Yeah.
You know, so if you watch my videos, you'll notice I don't really give anything like, oh, this is bad. Don't buy this. Stay away from it. You know, it's horrible. I don't do that because it's not in my style, I think.
Yeah.
You know, to totally bash a product. So I think I'm brought up in an environment where if nothing good to say, don't say anything.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in this day and age, well, it's always good to kind of look for positives, right? As opposed to just picking out negative, because you know there are people who enjoy just watching you destroy something on screen.
Yeah.
They find that entertaining, right? They just like you to, this is bad, this is horrible, and I just can't do that, you know. I rather not, right?
Yeah.
There are people who will do that, and they do that really well, right?
Yeah.
And they will get their kind of audience, you know, but that's just not what I do. So yeah, so I think that's why, you know, the products that I kind of review tend to be quite consistent with me in terms of like opinions, I think. Yeah,
because I can see the same thing doing. Like if something was really bad, I just wouldn't review it, and that would be like a sign that I'm like, no, it's bad.
Yeah, like, exactly, right? I just don't want to talk about it, you know, and just let it just disappear, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because there can be ups and downs. Like some products, there's always things that might be bad about it, or some things you're like, oh, this is really cool, but there's a little downside to it, which is also nice. But it's like, yeah, I feel too guilty of being like, especially because it's like they're like, well, what if you release something? I'm like, I can't. So well done you. It's great, thanks. Okay, bye. It can be definitely a challenge going through it. But, yeah, so with the sort of stuff you're coming up with, is there any like plot in Mentalism that you've been messing with there, like a plot that you really like that you're still trying to come up with like ways of doing? Like for me, I love free will. I just love that concept, but I don't like any method for free will. So I'm still like working through it, it's like I just want to come up with the perfect free will method, but it's like it's very tough.
Plots. Well, nothing in particular at the moment, I think. I think I have kind of lost that kind of momentum to kind of, sadly, I think, you know, that momentum to kind of create material, because I'm kind of a process kind of a driven person. You know, I enjoy the planning and the creation part, and then immediately being able to tell myself, I've got a show like next week, I can go and try it out, and then go and do it, film it, come back, watch it again, and then try to make some changes, and then I've got a show the day after, I can try it again. I like that kind of that process, you know. So, and which is why I have like so much footage of my live shows, right? Because I record almost every single show. And because I don't have the performing, you know, luxury now, it's kind of broken that chain in the process. So I've kind of just kind of sat on myself for a little while, and so not really any plots in particular, I think, that I've been like working on.
It is tough over the last few years, because I'm sure I've come up with like miracle ideas, a year ago, but never got to perform them. So they're just like they never happened, which is like really frustrating. Because like, oh, that's a great idea, but then like you forget about it because there's no shows, and it's like it doesn't work on Zoom. So I'll leave it for the next stage. It's on a piece of paper in a notebook somewhere that I need to go dig out, and it's all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so I definitely feel that as well. Where you're like, oh, I have this great idea, but like I can only show it to my wife, and that's it. And she's sick of hearing saying new stuff.
Yeah, I totally understand. Well, I think. I don't look for new. The thing about me is, once I know that a particular routine in my show, is kind of fixed. I tend to be just kind of fixed in the way I do it, because I'm the kind of performer that before I settle on one particular method for a routine, I really just go and buy everything I can about it, and I study everything before I choose what I like and put it into a configuration that I'm happy with.
Yeah.
So the final method that I use for a particular routine is going to be something that I'm pretty happy with already, and which is why I don't really seek out new methods, because I know that this effect, I can already perform it. It's in my show. It plays well. Audiences seem to respond well to it. I'm going to keep it like that. And so I don't like seek out new methods, So if you're the kind of performer that you enjoy collecting methods, then I think you're always going to have something new to play with, right? You're going to think, oh, that billiard move isn't good enough. Let's look for something else, and then you keep looking for method. You keep chasing method, But I try not. I don't think I'm like that. So, that's why plots wise, those that I'm interested in and those that I perform in my show already are more or less fixed. I'm a bit stubborn in that regard, I think. So, that's the reason why I think.
I find it really hard as well to mix stuff up, because I'd be on the phone to like Steve, or Steve be on the phone to me, and we're on the way to a gig, especially if it's a close-up gig, and like, oh, I bought all this new stuff, I have all these new ideas, I want to go perform, and then it's like on the way to the gig, you're like, what are you gonna do? Same old shit. I'm gonna do
exactly right. Exactly. I know. It's so nice to know that this sort of thing happens apart from Singapore as well, right? Because they're like gigs where just like a day before, that your package arrives, right?
Yeah.
So that package arrives and you open up the box and you take out the prop and you're like, this is great. I'm gonna do this tomorrow. So you go to your gig, you're loaded to the teeth, right? You're armed with everything. And then when you start approaching a group of people, out comes the deck of cards and out comes the usual stuff that you do.
Ambitious routine.
Yeah, and then at the end of the night, you just realize you forgot about all the other stuff that you had on yourself. So it's nice to know that this problem is also with you guys as well.
It's definitely like you show up and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this, and you're like, this isn't the right group. I don't feel comfortable, and then you go to the next. The right group.
It's never the right group, right? You're gonna. I'm not ready. Maybe the next one. Okay. Let me warm up. Let me warm up first.
I don't want to mess it up as my opener, so I'll wait, because it is that thing. It's like, it's terrifying if you're like, I know it works. I've done it for like friends. I know this works, but then it's like in a professional environment, because it's always like you have a set list that you're going to perform for people. So to put in something new, you kind of have to take something else out, and the reaction that the thing you're taking out gets, and you don't know the reaction of the thing you're going to put in is, which is always like, it's that fear, which is really makes it hard to change.
It's that risk. It's definitely that risk. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with it. But then on stage, I'm like, ooh, new trick, let's go. Well, because I can bury it somewhere in the middle. I can just be like, you go there.
Yeah, new tricks, new routines always go in the middle of my stage show. I know that I've got a good opening, good closing. The middle, I can try to play a little bit and just try to get, even if it doesn't, it doesn't work that well, you can kind of get through it based on, you just being experienced, right? You have the experience to kind of bulldoze your way through the show. But new stuff on stage always go in the middle for me.
It's something I always get asked as well, like doing mentalism and stuff from people, is about when you're on stage doing a stage show, to finish a mentalism act without just doing a confabulation prediction at the end of the show, which is just like everybody just ends with like some sort of prediction. Do you have any ways of like ending shows around to try and like have that finale without it just being like, and I predicted the show or something along those lines?
I think a very big thing for me in mentalism is influenced by Kennedy from the UK,
Yeah.
who always speaks about surprise. All right, so surprise is a very important element for me, and also influence, of course, comes from just watching Darren Brown, right, performing his theater shows as well. There's always a surprise that comes, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think yes, I do close certain shows with a confabulation, right?
Mhm.
But there has to be a surprise of sorts
Yeah.
that is either in the prediction itself or something that happens after the confabulation. So after the thing is read and you get the applause and that's it, thank you very much, and all that. And just before that, you say, "There's one more thing." I always like that kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you do watch any of my performances, my videos, I close my corporate show with a number reveal, a number kind of a prediction. So I have something. I like it that I have it run throughout the show.
Yeah.
I can have something that starts at the beginning of the show. During the show, I get certain things done. At the end, there is a total. I show that the number is predicted, and then they go back to see the show is over, and then the bill that was borrowed right at the beginning of the show has the serial number of the number, that kind of a thing. So that for me plays really well. I really
Yeah.
much prefer to close the show with that particular sequence as opposed to a confabulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like doing that number prediction as well. So I used to do it a lot when I had I have a pull-up banner that I have on stage, but it's outdated now, so I need to get a new one, so I haven't been able to do it since. But I had my phone number is on the pull-up banner. And in Ireland, our mobile phone numbers are always 08 something. So that's the first three. So it's 5637, like the number. So it'll be 087, 086. So I always do add number, or people write down on the intermission numbers, fold up in a bowl, they get switched and adds up to a number, and the number is 3,950,154 is like the number that's predicted.
Wow. Okay.
And then I have a prediction which is opened, which says 980. And I just go, you weren't even close. That's ridiculous. But then I turn 980 upside down and it's now 086. And then the rest of that number is the rest of my phone number, which is on a pull-up banner the whole time, which is like a nice way. And it's good to kind of like, you're pushing your phone number to like everybody in the audience. It's like,
right. That's perfect. I think that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, right? It's the surprise kind of a feeling, I think, that that you use during the show. So to me, it's not really, I mean, it is about the effect, I suppose, but again, I'm always thinking about what would surprise people, what that feeling of surprise. I want to give people that feeling of surprise. So what can I do to have that feeling of Timon Kraus, actually, when he came to Singapore, he taught of he taught something in his masterclass I found really interesting, was that people will remember your show, right?
Yeah.
If they have a moment of realization. Okay.
Yeah.
A moment of realization is always really stronger than like watching. I mean, if you see, I don't know, a playing card floating in the air, that is one thing, right? But how do I describe this to you? A moment of realization. That means it's that feeling of people are just sitting there, and then suddenly they understand what's going on, and they have that moment of, oh my God, no. That is the feeling. That is the feeling I like to have at the end of the show, because I think that is what makes it memorable. Yeah.
Darren is really good at that as well, because I always remember his show where I came up with like the phone number thing was where the two sides of the stage come together, and I think they spell confetti or something like that, where the things come together, and it's just like, what? It's literally being stereo every whole time.
Exactly, right. Yeah.
The painting being turned upside down as well is one of his great. It's just that you almost want them to be a little bit ahead of you when you're doing that final reveal.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I know what's happening. I know what's coming.
Yeah.
Because you have that thing sometimes where like magic and mentalism is kind of like, look how great I am. look how silly you are, like with a bank night or something like that. But if you can do that sort of revelation, like for me, when I turn that 1980 upside down and says 086, people are already ahead of me, which makes them feel smart, which makes them feel happy, and then that makes them like the show, which is like, it's that little thing of they had that realization before it's like given to them.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I never thought about it that way, but that's a good point. You make them feel like they understood it by themselves, right?
Yeah.
And they feel good about themselves, and I think it's a good feeling to have with them, especially if it's like towards the end of the show. They feel they end the show on a good kind of a feeling. So yeah, I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that thing where they spot the plot twist, but just right as it's happening. You don't want someone to spot the plot twist like 5 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
But if in the last 5 minutes, if they go, "Oh my God, I bet he's the murderer," and you're like, "And he's the murderer," then it's like, that's what you want.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's so good. So we have a segment on this show called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where we ask our guests to tell a story about maybe a performance that started off okay, but slowly went downhill into sort of usually hilarious circumstances, because to be fair, magic is funny. Do you have any stories of like a performance that didn't quite go to plan when you were performing?
Didn't quite go to plan. They are just, it's not just one. I think there are just so many, right? Because oh goodness. Well, there was this one that I remember really clearly, because all right, so I was performing this this closing effect. All right, so do you know this effect called Eat at Joe's?
I know the name of it, but it's like it rings a bell, but I don't remember it exactly.
Okay, it's a routine by Bruce Bernstein. All right, and it's worth its weight in gold. All right, if you do corporate events, it's a great routine. So, I mean, basically, it involves, you know, a string of people standing on stage. Some envelopes are mixed up. They are distributed amongst everyone. At the end, they reach in, they pull out, and it's a letter. And across the stage, it spells the name of the company.
Oh,
right. So it's that kind of a routine, right? So obviously, that kind of a routine, it's so valuable to performers, right? Because you know, it's so easy to like customize, and it's so easy for you to kind of add value to the event, right? So yeah, I was performing the whole show, and it was fine. I think it was for like some fund management company or something like that. So doing the whole show, it was fine, and I was specifically requested, right? Because there are many times event companies book me, and they just kind of pitch me to their clients. In this case, the client requested for me. They told the guy, I know this guy, I want him to perform the event. So, all right, expectations are there, right? So I thought, all right, I'll do this thing. Oh yeah, okay. It's just nice. It's 10 letters. I will use the company name. Perfect. So I do the show. The boss is in the front seat. He's I think he's enjoying the show. He's like pretty happy that he made a good decision, you know, apparently. And then I bring the 10 people up. I go through the whole routine, which I've done so many times.
Yeah.
They reach in, and just before that, the line I tell everyone is, all of you in the audience, please stand and take out your mobile phones, turn on your cameras, because you don't want to miss this. Once I see everybody stood up, and I say, all right, you ready? On the count of three, please, all of you, please remove what's inside the envelopes. And I think you're way ahead of me here. So it's like 3, 2, 1, and they remove it, and the word just came out jumbled out. It just came out wrong, you know. And I was like, I just had no idea what happened. And thinking about it now, it just raises the hair on my skin again, right? And I mean, until today, I have no idea what went wrong.
That's the worst.
I have no idea what went wrong. And I mean, I rewatched the video. I rewatched the footage. As painful as it was to do it, I came back home. I was just so upset. I watched the thing again, and the sequence was correct. You know, the envelopes were mixed up correctly. I mean, the only explanation is I set it up wrongly, but I don't think so because I double check everything. So I don't know. Until today, I don't know what happened. So the name came out wrong, and people just stood in the audience with their cameras, right? Not sure what to do. And I just kind of admitted that it went wrong. I just admitted it went wrong, and there's no way out of that, right? So I took everything back. I dismissed everyone. It was a bit of a somber, kind of a quiet ending to the show. And then I did one final effect for the boss of the company. I said, you know what, that didn't go so well. I'm gonna make it up to you now. Perform something for you personally, right? So can I invite you to stand for me? He stood up, and I took him through this imaginary thing, and I told him he was going to buy a new car. What was the license plate of the car? 4 lucky numbers. Business people are really, superstitious, and numbers mean a lot to them. So I knew this was going to have meaning for him. So he named the four numbers. I wrote them in my, I had a pocket writer set up on myself all the time. I took it out. I removed it from my wallet. I handed it to him. I had him read out the 4 numbers with me into the microphone. And so that was the final cue for the show. Everybody just, applauded. He was happy. But man, that moment, right, when the name came out and everything just, it wasn't rubbish, right? The letters all were in the wrong order. I was like, oh, goodness. Yeah. So that was something that, I'll never forget. I think that was one really, horrible. Yeah.
It's the worst when you can't figure out why, because at least if you figure out why, you can make sure it doesn't happen again. But when it just messes up, it's so hard to know.
Exactly. And which is the reason why I don't like to use electronics.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when electronics go wrong, you don't know why, and it's not your fault.
I got taught with electronics before. I lost 50 quid on stage. I was using the magnet detector one, the Hugo Shelley one. I think it's a 2.0 version. So
6 Sense,
I did,
right?
Yeah, 6 Sense. So I had the people on stage, was able to lie detection, found the person with the coin, and then I was going to do a 2 out of 3 in a row heads and tails guess for 50 quid was the bet. So I did the thing, and I knew it was like 2 for heads, 1 for tails, whichever way it was. And I was like, boom, it's heads. He opens like, no, it's not. I was like, what? I'd look at his hand. And I was like, it's not. I was like, what the hell? So I was like, I'll give you 50 quid in a minute, send him back to stage. So later on, I'd done a bank night routine where I ended up with loads of 50s. So I just took one and handed it to him. So it all looked set up that like I didn't want to look like the big guy winning all the money. But I was like, what went wrong with this? So I took the thing and I was using it. And if it's like this way, it's 2 for heads, 1 for tails. If it's this way, it's 2 for tails, 1 for heads. So I always set it up in my arm the same way. So it was always vibrating 2 for heads, 1 for tails. And that day at the gig, I put it on upside down without realizing it. And it gave me the opposite reading. And I had no idea and just completely lost 50 quid on the bet. And was just like, oh no. But I was able to like weave it into the show by winning. Luckily, I was winning loads of 50s later. So I was able to give him 50. And that also got rid of that like, oh, look at me. I won all this money and you won. I did a routine where like they won stuff, just not as much, so it was still okay. But I was just like, it's the worst. But yeah, it took me ages to figure out why it went wrong. So I was just like, I know this isn't right.
It's good. I mean, at least you know what went wrong. So I think that's good. Yeah.
It is that feeling of when I was doing like I do a chair test. With people with envelopes, and every time they're taking stuff out of the envelopes, I'm just like, please. Please
I know that feeling, right? I know that feeling. And ever since, even prior to that mess up on stage, I've always had that feeling, of they take it up and it's wrong, or if it's a chair routine, they take it and it's a wrong color, or I've always had that fear at the back of my mind, but never really paid much attention to it. Ever since that performance, it's become almost like a phobia.
Yeah.
That I don't know. Now I really check everything like again and again and again, and I just rehearse it so much, and it's so silly, because it's such a simple thing, and I have no idea how I messed it up, right? So, Yeah.
You need just an out now where you can like nail right or pocket right all those whatever
All the
orientation.
whole error.
Yeah,
All
and then just be like,
the error,
I
right?
predicted it. Thank you. It's
Okay.
not your name, but it's close enough. Just a long time with your hand in your pocket, just being like, "Oh God, come on."
Yeah,
As you stare at them, yeah, it could be. It's nothing worse because I think as well where I don't know how it happened, but I was in Instinct by Matt Mello, the smash and stab routine. So I had the styrofoam cups and I triple checked them. I was like, they're perfect. I know what to do. Did the routine, and then I was down to 2 cups and I couldn't tell them apart. They were the same, even though I triple checked this. And I was looking at it, just being like, I don't know what a spike is. And then luckily the sun like shone through a window, and I could see the shadow of the spike in one of the cups. So just hit the other one at an angle, and was like, there we go, and I got it right. But I was like, I checked everything to make sure there was no duplicates or anything like that. I was like, I know this is okay, but it's just one of those things where.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying, right? That kind of a thing. This is terrifying. Yeah.
It was one of those moments where it's like, get out your cameras, everybody gather around. We're going to do smash and stuff. It's just like, what? Why have I done this? It's the worst.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we just crossed over the hour there. For people who want to reach out to you online or your YouTube channel, we'll put the YouTube channel for your YouTube channel in the link below for people to can go over and watch your reviews. But if people want to reach out and contact you online, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, I mean, if you wish to get in touch with me, you can do so on Instagram, I suppose. I'm quite active there, so you can just drop me a message on Instagram. Drop me an email as well. I think my email details will be on my YouTube page as well. So you could drop me an email, or just drop me a message on Instagram. I think those are the 2 best ways to get in touch with me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks so much again, Nick, for coming on. We really appreciate it. And if anybody's watching this, make sure you hit subscribe, like, share it out, let people know what's going on. And also, if you watch this on YouTube, make sure you check out the audio only version. If you're listening to the audio only, check out the YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to everyone again next time. So thanks again, and I hope you have a lovely day, and we'll see you all again next time.
Thanks, David.
Bye. Thank you.